The cigarette. Arguably the most popular prop of all time. Since silent films were first introduced, cigarettes, cigars, and pipes have been depicted as glamorous and sophisticated, creating undeniably powerful images that still resonate today, as tobacco continues to permeate film and television and the American culture at large. Cigarettes look good on film. There's no denying their cinematic allure. And yet when it comes to ethics and morality in Hollywood and the prospect of policing content, sex and violence are always at the top of everybody's list. But what about smoking in film and television? Why are so many of our stars smoking on screen these days? Just because the First Amendment protects artists' rights and we're allowed to depict anything we choose to, should we? Do stars who light up on screen influence young people to smoke? Should actors, writers, directors, and producers consider social responsibility when it comes to depicting tobacco use in film and television? For the next 60 minutes, we'll hear from key players in the entertainment industry. Scene smoking, cigarettes, cinema, and the myth of cool.
People don't smoke in life like they smoke in movies. And I'm not talking about frequency, I'm talking about the way it's done, the way it's filmed, and the response they get from it, and the identification within a scene.
I'll give you an example of irresponsible smoking on screen. It's an example of bad acting, really. People who would consider smoking cool are basically people who don't understand human nature anyway. It's an affectation of physical discomfort or social discomfort, mood discomfort. It's, to me, it's in essence a tool of showing a weakness that many of us have or have had in our own lives.
If someone is particularly nervous, and the first time the audience sees them on screen and they see them chain smoking, even if it's for a scene that lasts 90 seconds, they've got an instant fix on something about that character.
There must be better ways of giving off that feeling to the audience. I mean, anyone can be a rebel by doing other things, not necessarily smoking or drinking.
I've watched amazing actors work and noticed that they're not holding something or fiddling with something. Their craft is good enough that they don't need anything.
There's nothing intrinsic about cigarette smoking that reveals what a scene is about, except that the person is a smoker.
And any actor who claims he needs a cigarette as a prop or as a character is not very proficient in his profession. And it's bull to me. If they need a cigarette to make a character work, then they're not very good actors.
But I gotta believe that any actor of a caliber of, say, Sean Penn, his primary concern has got to be the truthfulness of the character. It's never having worked with him, but I gotta assume the discussion starts there. And if he can make a legitimate argument that the character conceivably could smoke, then you go to the next level of, well, you know, must he? Is that something that we, in good social conscience, could avoid?
I don't analyze this stuff. That's not my job. That's not my responsibility. I'm not an anthropologist. I'm an actor. I don't analyze it that way. If it feels right for the character to smoke, I'm gonna smoke. If it's written in a story where there are consequences to violence, for me to take a bullet or deliver one, I'm gonna do that too.
But when it's just a bit of business, when it's just something for an actor to do in a scene, it's tricky because most actors will recommend, hey, you know, it might be good for my character to smoke in this scene. And usually what it is the actor in real life smokes. So he finds a way of utilizing his addiction.
Leading characters are lighting up in more than 9 out of 10 films, while a fifth of movies aimed at children feature smoking.
You may be working in a scene with actors who are non-smokers, and your cigarette smoking, while it may be a cool choice for you, could be totally offensive to everybody else.
Smoking's a great prop. It's a great prop in life. I mean, that's why when you get over the nicotine, when you quit smoking, what you miss the longest is the activity, you know? You're constantly filling your time with cigarettes as opposed to being still, which just sucks. Being still is very hard.
You ought to be able to get through a scene in a motion picture without smoking, unless you had one of the more terrifying addictions of all time.
And what if they didn't exist? If you're an actor, you got to take those things. You got to take everything into. Many times you do the exercise. What if that didn't exist? Okay, how about cigarettes? What if they didn't exist? What do I need a crutch now to make my performance work? Or am I a good enough actor that I don't need that sublimation, whatever it was? So you go without it.
Why do you have to smoke? It takes 2 minutes to do a scene. Why do you have to smoke in those 2 minutes? Get off and smoke. Go in your dressing room and smoke if you must. Why do you have to do it in those 2 minutes?
People have crutches that they rely on, and maybe one of my crutches is smoking, because it's humanistic, it's a habitual behavior, it has a rhythm to it, it creates an emotional life, an emotional connection to me immediately because I've been addicted to smoking.
Speaking purely from a craft standpoint, it's just a weak choice. You know, so forgetting social responsibility, do something more interesting, because I can give you 10 guys right now that smoke the same in every single scene.
And along the way, there are affectations you pick up. It's the same discussion about what jacket do I wear, about whether I smoke, how I smoke, whether I don't smoke.
You'll never convince me that smoking is necessary to make a scene work. So, or to put it this way, if you feel it is necessary, the scene probably doesn't work.
You want a cigarette?
Oh, no, thank you.
I'm trying to cut down myself.
I think when you have an actor who decides this is going to be part of my character, then you do have a conflict. If a guy like Sean Penn says, look, this is the way I want to play Sweet and Lowdown, it's a guy who smokes cigarettes, and it's important to his character, that would be a very hard thing to take out of him as an actor if he felt he wasn't going to deliver a complete performance.
I didn't find one single photographs in the archives of those guys, those players at that time, where they didn't have a cigarette in their hand.
I'll pretty much do just about anything. I mean, I don't want to limit myself, and I don't want to walk away from roles just because certain things are required of me. I mean, I'm not going to do pornography or anything, but no, I'm not going to walk away from a park if someone asks me to smoke.
More than 3,000 kids start smoking each day in the United States. 1 out of 3 will eventually die from it.
Show me a scene where guy smoking or woman smoking has enhanced the relationship between the two.
It can be sensual, and it is very attractive to watch. And the mouth, as we know, is so sensual, and you wrap your lips around that thing, and the more sensual you are, man or woman, then you will feel that.
Just because you depict somebody doing something, smoking a cigarette, and it's not wrong that they make it look sexy. I mean, because people make cigarettes look sexy on the street sometimes.
The genitals are particularly sensitive to smoking. Why is that? Because there has to be a lot of blood engorgement to get an erection. And if you're interfering with the normal dilation or constriction or the elasticity of those vessel walls, you're interfering with the ability of getting an erection. Some people say, well, it goes away if I quit smoking. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
When the end comes, I know there's just a gigolo's. Life goes on without me.
Now that medical researchers believe cigarettes are a leading cause of impotence, you're going to be looking at smoking a little differently. Cigarettes. Still think they're sexy?
There is nothing glamorous about it. You can put it on the screen, on the silver screen, and you can show how sexy it is, but take a look at what you're going to look like after one of these surgeries.
If you think that's cool, you can take a good look at me and see what happens to you from cigarettes.
Tobacco kills more people than alcohol, cocaine, heroin, homicide, suicide, automobile accidents, and AIDS combined.
You really shouldn't smoke, Miss Lane.
Don't tell me lung cancer, right?
Well, not yet, thank goodness.
Whether you find smoking sexy, glamorous, or disgusting, filmmakers will always have the right to depict tobacco any way they choose under the protections afforded by the First Amendment.
I don't believe that anything to do with smoking is a First Amendment issue. Certainly, portraying smoking in movies or television is not protected by the First Amendment. I'm persuaded. It's commercial speech. In other words, the First Amendment is really there to protect political speech, and it's been extended in a variety of ways, but it clearly does not extend to commercial speech.
The Constitution is written in fairly broad terms. I think it was probably the intent of the founders to leave open a fair number of areas, and the Constitution talks about preventing restrictions on the freedom of speech. And I think that it should be interpreted broadly to prevent almost any restriction that the government attempts to impose on speech.
I have the right to write anything that I want. People can refuse to buy it, people can refuse to see it, they can do whatever they want. If I think it's necessary to have a character smoke, I will. But I will not go out of my way and have no interest in making it glamorous. I'm not a pimp for the tobacco industry. I frankly, and there's a dichotomy here, I'm a heavy smoker, but I hate those sons of bitches. Those lying sons of bitches.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive. I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
And I too believe that nicotine is not addictive.
The free speech amendment just gets so abused, really. I think that it's just a really bad defense mechanism to sort of try to justify the behavior.
The First Amendment should work the same way in the area of tobacco. It shouldn't stop a movie maker who wants to have, star of the movie smoking a cigarette from having that person smoke a cigarette.
Yo, here's some numbers to chew on. Tobacco or alcohol was used by at least one character in 68% of 50 animated feature movies released during the past 60 years, with no associated pro-health messages. What's up with that? That's bull.
Let's not pretend this is, for the most part, artistic freedom. It's not. It's not. Any more than the Vanity Fair shoots with, dangling butts are. It's preposterous. So it's, from an industry that staples a red ribbon on your lapel whenever you walk outside your door, it's just humorously ironic how you see those same people, on the back pages of People magazine smoking with their shiny red ribbons.
Artists' rights under the First Amendment mean that censorship has no place in entertainment. But if we keep pushing the envelope, will some form of censorship be the ultimate consequence?
Would you get rid of the film? Would you fine the director? I think it comes down really to common sense.
I don't like being told there can't be nudity, or there can't be violence, or there can't be this, or can't be that, and regulating it. Yes, according to ratings and things like that, we have to protect young people or warn parents. But at the same time, I don't believe in, stamping anything forbidden, and you can't do that, because the minute you do that, you're going to leave the door open to a million other kinds of censorships.
There's so many agendas that people have about these things. And I do understand making a documentary about it, because so many people talk about this stuff and take these positions on these things. But make no mistake, as it relates to a conversation with film, this is strictly a censorship conversation. No question, this film is about censorship.
All of comedy, all of drama is based on human frailties. Addictions are part of human frailties. So I think it's pretty sticky area if you get in and say, well, let's not highlight this frailty over here. If you start picking and choosing, you will have nothing to write about.
I don't believe that you're going to be able to legislate content. I don't think that's ever going to happen. And I think we're going to be dependent on the good sense and the good instincts of the creators of movies and television to keep images of smoking off the screen.
High horse statements, masked as respectful. But what they really are they are meant to use the opportunity of a film like this to attack people who are not spending their lives trying to be liked by being politically correct, nor trying to defy that, but simply trying to do the work that we are here to do. And sometimes it's messy behavioral things in the human condition, which can include smoking, and could include me tying off right here and shoving a needle in my vein.
Censorship, there has to be some sort of limit to it. If you start that sort of thing, even though smoking is dangerous and can kill, it's finally, ultimately, individual choice.
And I think the more of us who take it on our own shoulders, you know, to be careful if and how we portray smoking or drinking, the less likely we're going to need any formal regulation, which is always frightening in a free speech society.
Between 80,000 and 100,000 young people become addicted to tobacco every day.
If a thing is pornographic, that's an abuse that's against the law. I don't think that cigarette smoking has yet been defined as pornographic, although it should be. I think it's obscene.
Censorship is coming like a tidal wave.
If artistic freedom is protected under the First Amendment, just where does the idea of social responsibility fit into the picture?
I think as a director, one has a tremendous social responsibility in depicting anything on screen, be it violence or smoking or whatever sort of controversial activity you're talking about. And the two sides of the equation are the First Amendment, where you should have a right to portray anything, but on the other hand, having the sort of personal conscience of saying, is this necessary?
I don't feel any social responsibility for me as an actress. And if I'm playing a hooker and I want to smoke, and I'm gonna smoke. So I'm not feeling that I have to be a role model, I have to be good all the time. It depends on the character. If my character is God, you know, I won't smoke probably. But my character is a goddamn hooker, so I want to smoke. And that's my choice.
If current trends continue, 5 million children alive today will die from tobacco-related diseases.
What are the limits on personal behavior that we would censure at this point? I suppose public buggery or something. Do you as a public figure, do you as a person who is appearing publicly, have any larger responsibility? I think you do.
There are movies I could think of, you know, probably maybe many, where I can think of an image of someone smoking where the actor made it irresponsible because he believes and has made silly people believe that it is some kind of a romantic behavior, and maybe he made it sexy for them. I claim not guilty on this.
What about all the actors and actresses who drink? Are they not responsible for all the children who will then be beaten by alcoholic parents? Every child, of an alcoholic parent has been scarred for life, physically or psychologically. Has any child been scarred because a parent smoked? We're talking about moral idiots.
I think actors have a tremendous responsibility socially in handling whatever role they do and thinking about the rest of the world, especially with smoking or any other drug addiction. I mean, if someone was a heroin addict in a movie, they would take it seriously and make sure that it wasn't just someone shooting up in the corner. And I think you have to have the same gravity to smoking a cigarette.
The celebrity is very important in this country. They stars, actors, performers are our royalty. They are what glamorizes our culture, and the way they behave is very often copied. And I think that there are a lot of stars or celebrities that understand they have a social responsibility as well. And among those responsibilities is not smoking.
Being in the public eye, there's a certain amount of responsibility you have to take. I mean, you clearly choose to be in the public eye because to pursue the fields that put you there, you are. And I think that with that definitely comes responsibility. I mean, I didn't realize as well when I smoked that I would have an influence on young females, and I know that now.
Anybody that puts a cigarette in the mouth of somebody in a motion picture or television, I think it's totally irresponsible, especially in today's day and age.
Actors identified as good guys lit up in 36% of the movies, as opposed to bad guys who smoked in 28% of the movies.
And the hypocrisy of this kind of focus, you know, makes a smoke screen. They are making a smokescreen from the real issues of it all.
I think my responsibility is to reflect humanity with as much honesty and integrity as I can as an actor. That is my social responsibility.
Maybe actors, whenever they feel like what they're doing is gross as opposed to cool, maybe then we'll start being more socially responsible.
it's interesting that the film industry does bear this sense of responsibility, that because it is so pervasive, its impact, that we kind of have to, you know, look at what impact we do have on the public and make choices based on that.
I don't think actors have any more responsibility than anybody else. I think the biggest role models in kids' lives are their parents. And, it's up to us to be able to explain what they see and put it into context.
If you know that going in, images that you put on the screen are going to specifically affect people's behavior, then you have a responsibility to do something about that.
The social responsibility can start with the writer. If the writer doesn't put it on the page, perhaps it will never go to the screen.
There's so much hypocrisy about what is socially acceptable and unacceptable, and you know, you can't say boner on the air, but you can show people blowing each other's heads off. People should be able to do whatever the hell they want. That's why we're here. That's America. And they should be able to say whatever they want.
I think you got to go to each individual and make them aware of their social responsibility, because I don't think they really are aware.
You can't turn around and take those out of, you know, out of drama and comedy because it's something you don't want to put out in the world. If you glorify it, if you do, you know, if you try to make it look sexy and wonderful and have no repercussions, maybe you're not being responsible. If you show violence that's gratuitous, maybe you're not being responsible. But, you know, it's tricky. I really think you have to push responsibility. You certainly can't push the First Amendment.
If filmmakers are to be truly responsible socially, they need to ask the question, does film and television actually have an impact on younger viewers?
We know that 28% of the population roughly smokes. We know that 85% of those smoked today come from children under the age of 18. We know that the predominant goers to the movies are between 11 and 19. And we also know that children take out of that lots of messages. And so if you see in the movie somebody who smokes once every 2 to 3 minutes, and they tend to be the leading lady or the character that people identify with, people walk away with a message that this is cool, this is what goes on in the real world.
I think no matter which choice you make, you are an influence. You're either an influence for something positive or something negative. If you watch me do something that you in your heart know is a destructive thing to do, hopefully seeing me do it and not handle it well will encourage you not to make that same choice.
Life is a messy thing. Smoking is a messy thing. It's not something that you want your kids to do. It's not something you want to do. It's something that you, at some point, if you make the mistake, you make it. I never smoked one cigarette in my life because I'd seen someone smoke it on film.
I saw John Garfield smoking. He was my idol. And so he not only influenced me to smoke, I smoked like him. I took the drags like he did. I threw away the cigarette like he did. I held it in the way he did. So it proves that you are influenced. And in a way, movies, those guys up there that are your heroes are like your peers.
I did not smoke when I came into show business in '54. But after about 2 years, when I had some pretty nice parts, I thought, well, I'm going to learn to smoke so that when I have to smoke on screen, which was practically automatic, especially my kind of vampy character that I often played.
I'll consider mistress, plaything, toy for a night, but I refuse to be your mother. That's out.
I thought, well, when I get to be a star, I will know how to smoke, and I'll look good smoking. So I took up smoking. Can you imagine a stupider reason?
I think a lot of film and television is directed towards young people, and I think that's when people start smoking, obviously, when they're young. And I think it looks like it's cool on television and in the movies. It looks like it's satisfying, and it looks like it just tastes good, and it's very, I mean, that's the whole reason I think I started smoking.
We look to actors, I mean, as much as we deny it, we look to actors for how we dress, how we act, how we do things, and if they're smoking, and if you see a kid who's a 17-year-old who sees his favorite actor or actress smoking and it's cool, then they're going to want to do it as well.
Teens whose favorite stars light up on screen are 16 times more likely to smoke.
People need to know that what they're watching on television isn't real. But we also have to take into account the fact that what we're doing does affect people, and they are going to emulate it.
I think that young people are very affected by what they see in the media. And I think that having role model people smoking is a terrible, terrible example for young people.
Because a lot of times in the movies, they're smoking under stress or things like that. So then kids say, well, if I'm stressed or if I'm under pressure, maybe I should start smoking because that'll help me calm down.
Kids think that they see movie stars doing it, so they guess they can do it too.
You look up to people in Hollywood. All kids do. There are certain people that you're going to look up to. And especially impressionable kids are going to mimic what they see.
I mean, I can remember when I was a kid watching Rocky. After every movie, what did I do? I'd set up my room like his gym. I was in 3rd grade. I wanted to be Rocky. I mean, if he was smoking a cigarette, I'd be smoking cigarettes.
I think the perspective that the influence is that to make it exciting or romantic. Well, weaknesses of all kinds find a certain romance on film that we all have to be very careful about.
The problem with the media is always way behind. The media is owned by 4 or 5 giant international devil-worshipping conglomerates who are part of the game. They're part of it. They're the bitch of whatever industry comes along.
One of the most visible new movements to come along in the war against smoking is the anti-tobacco movement, whose public service announcements often appear in prime time, sometimes spoofing our most popular programs.
Here's the story of a chain-smoking lady who smoked around her 3 lovely little girls. All of them had clothes that smelled just like their mothers, the youngest one asthmatic. Here's the story of a man who smoked daily, that was busy with 3 packs of his own. His oldest son showed early signs of heart disease because Dad smoked at home. One day this lady dumped a smoke off this fellow. Now kids shared a risk of disease with their folks because this group would somehow form a family. And that's the way they became affected by secondhand smoke. Secondhand smoke, secondhand smoke. That's the way they became affected by secondhand smoke.
If we're smart, we can also give smoking the image that it actually should have, which is it's dangerous, it's deadly, it ruins your life, and it kills people you love. But I think that's a much harder image to sell because that's not what people really, really want to talk about when they're making film and television.
I had my first cigarette when I was 13. When I found out how bad it was, I tried to quit. But I couldn't. They say nicotine isn't addictive. How can they say that?
By the time this generation of young kids may get lung cancer 50 years from now, because that's the average, the way it works, we'll have a cure for it. And even if we knew that for a fact, the anti-tobacco people would still be fanatics.
Those kids see it, and you're 20 feet high, however high a screen image is. The kids see it. If he can do it, it's all right with me. And you become so much larger than life, and it's so heroic. It's a terrible, terrible thing. They should ban smoking in the movies.
You may say that hearing somebody say bad language is going to influence a kid so that he'll say bad language. And that may be true. And maybe you don't want a kid to say bad language. But as far as I know, I mean, I think there are most of the scientific studies that I've read say that saying bad words don't kill you or anybody else.
How about this? What if a child sees adultery on screen? Oh, how come that's okay? Because these people actually hate smoking more than they do adultery.
You cannot stop Sean Penn or Leonardo or any of Bruce Willis or any of them. They just have to be given the message, and it has to come from them. You gotta take them to a group of people, a group of kids, and talk and say, do I influence you? If I smoke, does it influence you? Do you smoke because I smoke?
And you're going back to saying, let's pay attention to this. because then we're protecting our children. That's exactly how you're not protecting the children, because you're missing the whole world going on back here. This is bad. Smoking's not good for you. We know that. Tell your kids that, you know? But don't you know, burn the book and say, or hide things in our, you know, it's there. Listen, I saw all of Sam Peckinpah's movie. To date, haven't shot anybody. It's nonsense. They're lying, and they're lying. Smoking's the same thing. You don't smoke because you see it in movies.
Current movie heroes are 3 times more likely to smoke than people in real life.
Look, there's certain movies where you should see people as they are, and it is a terribly addictive thing. Let's just not put it in a context that is, you know, in the name of realism, unrealistic to the way it happens in life.
Likely movies have some drama in them, and in conflict, story terms, there tends to be conflict in the character. More likely than not, if you're doing a contemporary story, and you have a face like mine, in this world, you're in conflict.
I think that actors who brought it to their craft are enabled by directors who say, oh, I'm working with this big star. I better not say anything that's going to cause that star to be angry. I'm going to let him do exactly what he does. I mean, we work in a business where people have a lot of power, and no one wants to tell them what to do and not to do.
There's millions of actors who don't smoke, and to me, you know, you can make those choices. I personally that would be an easy one for me. For a lot of directors, I don't know that it's so easy, because I think that they, you know, a lot of times stars will push directors around a lot of times, and you know, the studio is certainly not going to back a director up because they'll always side with the star.
Well, if the actor is that strong and he wants to smoke, you're screwed, man. Even in my age, in my career, my position. I mean, if it boiled down to it, and a major actor who was the lead in the motion pictures, I'm going to smoke, and I said, no, you're not. He said, hey, pal, I'm going to smoke. Then, you know, you're terminated. Because you say, no, you're not, period. I'm not going to roll the camera with you, have a cigarette in your mouth. Somebody's going to come down and say, one of you is gone, and sure as hell, it's not going to be him because they raised the money on his name. Always get jobs, pay or play, and keep your car parked towards the gate.
There are certainly actors in our business who are so big that they can do whatever they want. They really can, you know, they can decide not to come to work, they can do whatever they want. And if they want to sit there and smoke, essentially no one can stop them.
And I see him say things, you know, Sean Penn, people like Brad Pitt, you know, they're so powerful that nobody will tell them such and such. It's such a perverse view of how movies get made. Nobody functions creatively taking on a position of some kind of power and hammer, and I'll do this, But I think that you're sensible enough not to work with people. You know who's going to be out there saying, well, you know, nobody in my film is going to smoke.
Whether using a cigarette in a scene is a good thing or a bad thing, a weak choice or a good choice, I think depends on who's acting.
I would not kick Brad Pitt out of bed because he smoked in a film, but I wish he wouldn't, if it were he or whoever.
Well, Leonardo DiCaprio is a very good actor, and he could be even better if he didn't smoke in movies.
I think it's kind of sad that we're targeting all the actors, and because they're the ones that we see every day. But if like your neighbor is smoking, I don't know if it's any different than seeing like Brad Pitt smoking, because if you see it everywhere.
I remember in Romeo and Juliet, Leonardo DiCaprio was really cute, and then there was a scene where he started smoking. I was like, ugh. It's gross.
I would doubt that a teenager says, well, I smoke because Leonardo DiCaprio smokes. He's more likely to smoke because a friend of his at school says, hey, try this.
God bless Leonardo DiCaprio if he has the courage against this onslaught to smoke. God bless him.
People smoke because they're weak. Johnny Depp smokes because he can't not smoke. And you should put Johnny Depp in a room for a week without cigarettes, and you watch how cool he gets.
I think Winona Ryder also, some people had sort of acted out against her at some point, and I haven't seen her smoke. I mean, I think she's still a smoker, but I have not seen her smoke in a photo or at a party since that time. So I think, you know, she might be dealing with her addiction on her own right now, but I think that definitely made some kind of statement, and I think it was, again, young people who were sort of asking her, why, what are you doing, you know, you're affecting us, that made the difference.
You are responsible to those kids. And every time they smoke and every time a kid gets sick, I'm sorry, part of it is your fault. And part of it is their fault. Anyone who encourages it. And just because, well, I have a right to do it to myself, you're not doing it to yourself. You're in a picture that's seen by millions of kids. You are responsible to them. You're not alone in some room smoking. You're not just damaging yourself.
The hardcore factual reality behind tobacco depiction isn't always accurate or glamorous.
First of all, there are lots of fallacies that are being communicated. One, first of all, people don't smoke real world once every 3 minutes. They smoke roughly about 18 to 20 minutes, and that's just the pharmacology of smoking with tobacco use. Second is given if you look at the use in the movies, we see a much more prevalent use than what we see in the real world.
I mean, 400,000 people die every year. That's a huge, huge number. I mean, that's an awesome number. That's never depicted in movies. It's not the most interesting thing. That's part of the problem. It's much cooler just to smoke than to really show the realism of it.
Every cigarette is doing you damage. Lungs are like sponges with millions of tiny air sacs for transferring oxygen. Every breath of tobacco smoke attacks them. No wonder smokers feel short of breath. Their lungs are rotting. Every cigarette is doing you damage.
But the fact is that a lot of people smoke, for good or ill, and they're not walking around hacking, coughing, carrying an oxygen tank behind them, in an iron lung, whatever you want to call it. It's a fact of life.
I have cancer because I smoked. I lost my vocal cord because I smoked. My daughter smoked, and she's gonna die in a year. John Wayne smoked, and he died, and Buffy Bogart died, and Sammy Davis died because they smoked.
I think people forget, if you don't die of smoking, this is a revelation, you will still die. People die who don't smoke. I know it's hard for the anti-tobacco people to acknowledge this, but they really do.
Is there another doctor? I want a second opinion.
Okay, here's your second opinion. Your husband's overweight. He suffers from stable angina. He needs to stop drinking and smoking. He needs to lay off the pizza, burgers, and fries and get some exercise. Otherwise, all the second opinions in the world are not going to keep him from dropping dead in the next 2 years.
Smoking is responsible for 1 in 5 U.S. deaths and costs American taxpayers $97 billion each year in healthcare costs and lost productivity.
And there's a strange sort of rebelliousness that is associated to smoking, and the thing is, it's such a false rebelliousness. It's not, you know, it's not rebelling and sort of, it's not, there's nothing cool about it. It's conformity in like the worst way.
The real root of the question about whether or not you would smoke should never be affected by some kind of political awareness. No. If you don't know how to smoke without believing you're the coolest guy in the world because you have a cigarette in your mouth, you shouldn't be an actor in the first place.
But kids see it. It doesn't matter. I think people should be a little bit more aware of who's really out there watching, and it's pretty much everybody.
In the LA Times, on a movie review, they had scenes of torture, suicide, mutilation, rape, and smoking. We are morons. We live in an age of morons. Morons leading the herd. It is staggering that smoking would be listed there. Staggering. It is not an immoral act. It is an unhealthy act at worst. There are many unhealthy acts.
Some claim the best way to get rid of the unintentional glamorization of tobacco in film and television is to restrict its use to accurate depiction. But just what is accurate depiction?
if a television show or a film is shooting in present-day California and they're shooting inside a building or inside a restaurant, current law says there's no smoking because of the smoke-free ordinance. So that would be an example of being accurate.
For example, say you had a movie that took place in Las Vegas in the 50s, and it was about pit bosses, and there's some scene that took place in their break room. At a certain level, I think it'd be very untruthful to that milieu and those people in that time not to have them smoking in the scene.
What's really true is that we're never, ever depicting real life. Ever. The people that we have are not typical people. They're better looking, they're taller, they're slenderer, they have all these talents and abilities, and they spend 2 hours in hair and makeup, you know, before they ever come out. They are not typical. It is not regular life. It is a completely artificial creation from beginning to end. And within that world of artifice, to suggest that you need to portray smoking is ridiculous.
We're in the movie business. We're not in the reality business. And it is an art, and it is a fiction. And the only instance in which I can think that it's essential for a character to smoke would be if he is someone who's dying of lung cancer. And it was a story about a guy who smoked and got lung cancer. That's an instance in which it would probably be essential that the character smoked.
No, keep him, really. I just quit.
Smoking's something that people do in real life, just as drinking and eating, driving cars, what have you. So, I mean, if you're going to feature it in a film, then it's just projecting what people do in real life.
A barroom scene in a Western, unless it's heavy with smoke, doesn't seem to have the right atmosphere and so forth. So in some sense, the movie makers are justified in trying to recreate what the scene was like back then.
You are prepared to show rape, but you're not prepared to show a cigarette after sex? I mean, give me a break.
We don't have smoke-free movies because, I mean, we shouldn't have smoke-free movies because we don't have smoke-free life unless it's the theme of the film.
But I think we have to be pretty nuanced when we look at pieces of art and just say, well, because something's depicted, does that mean that the person who created the piece of art supports it? Not necessarily.
If you show smoking, you are condoning smoking. If you are condoning smoking, a certain percentage of your audience will be drawn to it.
And they don't show the consequences of smoking in movies, and so it's basically all the glamour. They glamorize it more, yeah, and they don't show that people are dying from lung cancer, and they don't show people who have they don't show that they have bad breath because they're getting all these girls, they're getting all these guys. They don't show all that stuff. They show only the good parts, not the bad parts.
Every cigarette is doing you damage. This is part of an aorta, the main artery from the heart. Smoking makes artery walls sticky and collects dangerous fatty deposits. This much was found stuck to the aortal wall of a smoker aged 32.
On a physical level, if you're portraying a police officer and you are after a criminal and you're a habitual smoker, the reality is you're not going to be able to run 10 blocks without wheezing.
But they say they're correct. We are artists first. If you're artists first, have some people smoke. In real life, people smoke.
If you're a woman who smokes or a man who smokes and you're a habitual smoker who's been doing so for years, you're going to look older, you're going to look wrinkled, you're going to have yellower teeth, you're not going to look, picture perfect because of the reality of what tobacco can do to you physically.
Now, this is an artistic endeavor, so you can't say that, nobody ever smokes a cigarette ever, because in the world, people do smoke cigarettes. But I think that you want to make a connection. There'd be a reason why you'd show somebody smoking a cigarette. And it's not just some kind of casual thing, well, I'll just light up a cigarette in the scene because, it's somebody who has an addiction problem or has an emotional problem or who going to have a health problem or factors in some way like that in the film.
More and more creators of film and television are exploring social responsibility by keeping images of smoking off screen, and they're doing it in very creative ways.
A few years ago, we did a television version of Gypsy. We produced Gypsy that Bette Midler starred in. And the actor who played Herbie came to the set and said, well, Herbie in every other Gypsy has always smoked. And I said, in our Gypsy, he's not going to. And the actor agreed and didn't smoke. There wasn't one person who saw Gypsy who then called up and said, gee, how come Herbie wasn't smoking in Gypsy? I think what happens is that people don't miss it.
In the Emmy Award-winning drama The West Wing, the President of the United States is trying to quit smoking. The show's writers continue to come up with creative ways to deal with his addiction.
I'm going to take one question apiece.
Josh.
Mike.
When was the last time the President had a cigarette?
The President quit smoking years ago.
He bummed a cigarette from me on Air Force One 2 days ago.
Oh, my God.
A project that I had done recently that I was one of the producers of, we had a character, a woman, a beautiful woman, sitting at a bar waiting to pick up this guy. And the guy sat there and walked over to her just as she was about to light her cigarette, got really close to her mouth and to her face, pulled the cigarette out of her hand, got really close to her lips and said, "You're so much more beautiful without it." And that was so sexy. It was so hot, and that was his choice. And it worked, and it played so well and just automatically increased the energy and increased the tension in the scene, and that was a really clever choice, because somebody else might have come and lit her cigarette.
Ted Danson plays John Becker, a medical doctor who smokes in the CBS sitcom Becker.
Oh, God, this is so much better than sex.
Dave Hackle, Becker's creator and executive producer, finds that using cigarettes can be socially responsible by depicting the comedic reality of smoking.
I needed a lot of flaws in this character, and I couldn't think of a bigger flaw than a doctor who smoked. I thought it was a very stupid thing to do. I thought it was a good way to constantly point out that he's wrong and that smoking is a pretty stupid thing to do.
Gee, I think Lassie's trying to tell us something. What is it, girl?
He's trying to tell you you're an idiot. How can you be a doctor and still smoke?
Hey, I'm alive with pleasure. You know, knock it off, will you? I'm tired of being treated like a leopard just because I'm a smoker. I mean, look at this guy. He smokes. Don't you wish they'd just shut up and leave you alone?
Tell me about it.
I like that he smokes. I like that complicated character. I like that he truly cares about health and people's well-being and is so messed up that he himself actually smokes at the same time he's saying that. I like that. And he wrestles with it. You know, he's not applauded for it. Everyone thinks he's a total jerk for doing it. Nobody else on the show smokes. And you cannot look at Becker and go, ha, my role model. You know, Becker is a walking anti-role model.
When I was a writer on Star Trek, we very consciously never showed anybody smoking, even in an alien bar. But mostly it was our regular characters, our sort of heroes. And I think the unconscious message there was that, you know, that humanity had evolved beyond smoking.
When I was in Volcano, you know, I had kind of difficulty figuring out what the character was. It's one of these big action movies, you know. And I said to the director, you know, I've always wanted to do a character that's just on the patch, you know? He's just trying not to smoke. And that actually worked out pretty well. And it was an interesting choice for the character. He loved it. The director loved it. We tightened all of his clothing, like he had been gaining weight, and, you know, he was chewing Nicorette gum, and he had the patch, and he was really, really upset all the time.
I remember in the beginning, Mel smoked on camera. And then we wrote, and I knew he was trying to quit, so we wrote a show where he carried the one cigarette, which was going to be his last cigarette. And it kind of worked. It kind of set a precedent for us. And I mean, I talk about that because I've done 4 of those Lethal Weapons in 6 movies with Mel Gibson, and I've seen what he has gone through as a really disciplined guy to try and stop smoking. And it's heartbreaking.
Becoming aware of the influence and the impact of smoking is only half the battle. Creating workable, realistic solutions and alternatives is the next step.
Even just throwing in wild lines in movies, if somebody's smoking throughout a film, you know, maybe somebody can throw in a line saying, ugh, what are you doing to yourself? I mean, something subtle as that, or, oh, God, you know, haven't you learned from your father's, you know, demise? You know, something silly like that that doesn't ever have to compromise the vision of a movie.
If you have to put a cigarette in someone's mouth in a film, put it in the mouth of the most odious character there is.
Now, when I hire or cast anybody, I said there'll be no smoking on the picture. You want to go out and do it in your trailer, do it at home, do it. I can't stop you, but it won't be on the picture. And it won't be, the crews can't do it around actors or around each other. No smoking in equipment trucks. And so now I make it it's part of the deal. Nobody has fought it, ever.
Saying, well, you know, nobody in my film's gonna smoke, you know, or nobody's gonna, you know, then you gotta tell me what world, show me the world your story's coming from, where nobody smokes or where nobody gets hurt, and then maybe I'll be able to figure out a character to play in it.
I think if you spend more time with your kids, you would monitor better, or you'll make better choices on what they watch and what they don't watch.
I already told you my idea, the Cancer Awards, the annual Cancer Awards, for the actor who has done the most to kill people with cigarettes by showing himself or herself smoking in public or on film. And the first runner-up. And the best supporting actress in a role to produce cancer. Get it on Entertainment Tonight. You know, come on. You can put a stop to this immediately. I mean, I'm very, very impatient with people who say there's nothing we can do about it. You can do a lot about it, and you can get it, you can have it finished in a year. I mean, you won't stop them from smoking, but you will stop them from smoking publicly. Easy.
And I think it's always those people who tend to take on a position of a kind of move towards a homogenized culture and what's now called political correctness, that are really the source of the cancer in the society.
It requires education of the Screen Actors Guild, the Directors Guild, and the Writers Guild, because the studios aren't going to do it. They're not going to impose those kind of regulations. They don't care, because all they care about is making money.
And if you're going to show that you're nervous, take a drink of water and have your hand shake. Drop the glass. Comb your hair nervously. There are so many other ways.
Thank you for not smoking.
As we head into the 21st century, a new generation will get their shot at creating film and television. And with that, the opportunity to make a valuable contribution to society. The choice is yours. The question is, how will you handle it?
Please don't be lazy. Don't use cigarettes because it's easy, because it's there, because it's a prop. Be creative. Come up with something else that's not going to harm people.
If we could take and remove from various milieus and bring it more in a context of reality without taking away creative freedom, we would be giving our children a better opportunity to make healthy choices in the future. And if they continue to watch and see on TV and the silver screens a glorification of a process, of a product when used as intended kills, and we know that, it would better help the future health of their children and actually their children's children.
You don't make a documentary like this if you're for smoking. I'm not for smoking. I'm here. That's why I'm here. I'm not against it in film. That's at all. In fact, I will do it a lot. And I'll fight to be able to do anything else like that and let actors express themselves in ways that they want to express themselves. But basically, I would say that most of the people, from what I understand, that are in this film are the same ones who will answer the question, are you now or have you ever been? No, but I'll tell you who is. And I'm happy to be that is.
It's natural to want to say, hey, I am invincible, and it's not going to kill me. If it does, it'll kill me when I'm 80, and I don't care anymore, which they're wrong about. They don't realize they're going to want to live past 80. I don't think anything more can be done. If they've decided they want to smoke, goodbye. Conversation is finished.
Well, filmmakers, we can say what we want. They still going to do it. It's about money.
The worst thing we can do in this milieu is be cynical and say, oh, people are going to smoke anyway. No, if we stop 1, 2, 3 filmmakers from doing something they shouldn't do, we've succeeded.
Tobacco is not a moral issue, it's a health issue. It's as simple as that. You tell people it's unhealthy, you tell them the truth of the risks, and you go on to important matters like child abuse, like spousal abuse.
Don't you feel that smoking's been done? Don't you feel that if you come up with something better or different, that you're going to get recognized for that?
There's a fine line between telling a story and doing a public service announcement. And I think we're always going to wrestle with that.
It is about the future of our children. And I think they have to get a conscience about that.
There should be a rating for adult films that gives a wide berth for creative people to make things that can be viewed by adults. But I think that there should be very specific warnings for parents on any film that allows kids to go in.
And let's hope the day comes when people don't smoke, so that one of the big surprises in seeing someone smoke in a film is, my goodness, there's somebody doing that crazy thing they used to do back in the turn of the 21st century.
Before you get there, before you're famous, before you think that anyone really cares, I think just to think, I mean, just even by pursuing those fields, you have to know that you have this tremendous effect on the whole world, I mean, which is why they're going to be drawn to it in the first place. I mean, also for young people, especially like very young people, they're the ones who dictate what movies get made. And I don't think they realize how powerful they are.
If you are trying to truly get at the essence of what it is to be human, you can't go wrong, I don't think. You know, some people may not, depending how dark you go, some people may not want to go see your film. But as long as you're digging for the truth about what it is to be human, that's what you have to pay attention to. That is being socially responsible.
Just remember the influence that you're having on people, and try to take it on your own shoulders to portray, if you do portray smoking and drinking or anything that's negative to your health, in a negative way, because somebody may be affected positively or negatively by that message, however you do it.
Understand the cause and effect here. You really understand it. Take the time to understand the cause and effect, and then if you really understand the cause and effect and you still want people to smoke, then that's on your conscience.
Why now is a film like this being made? You're making this film. It's going to be propaganda for one side or for the other, based on interpretation. Because most people are looking for very simple answers to things.
If you are a big celebrity and you do have the power to say, I don't want to smoke in this film, I think that you should. Because it's a terrible drug that you're saying is glamorous, and it isn't. It's gross. And if you had the power, then use it.
You know, the good thing about this conversation is the next time Becker lights up, I'll be going, oh, geez, is this a good choice or a bad choice? Maybe I don't know what I'm doing with my, maybe I'll put one out.